Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Onion Soup, the show where we pull back the layers of metaphysics and reality in order to demystify spirituality. Today, we have a wonderful guest, Ms. Brandi Van, and she is the psychic medium mentor. And I'm really excited to talk to you today. But first and foremost, I was on your website, and I must say your website is very beautiful.
Aw.
I really like how you have the almost like the background graphic up top is moving. So you're gonna have to tell me how you did that.
Okay.
But so just tell us about being a psychic medium, or how did you find out that you were psychic?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. But yeah, I basically had a lot of abilities since I was like maybe like 10 or 12. And I didn't know this until later, but I'm clairaudient, and that means that I hear the messages in my mind, but it's my voice, but not my thought.
Hmm.
So when I was like 10 or 12, and I'm having these thoughts that aren't mine, I thought honestly that I might have been going crazy. So I was afraid to tell people because I thought maybe they would think I was crazy, or maybe they thought I was like making it up. So I didn't really tell anyone. I just ignored any spirit that came to me. I just told them to go away. I did have a fear of them. I didn't know what they wanted, who the message was for. And then I was in my 20s and I had a very profound spiritual experience. My grandma was passing away. My family was all holding hands. We were in her hospice room. And as she took her last breath, I literally felt her spirit rise above the bed.
Hmm.
And when I looked above the bed, there were like all these magnificent colors that like I don't even think exist on our human plane. They were like so bright and amazing, and they were forming a star, and it was beating in and out like a heartbeat. And
Hmm.
I was actually seeing this with my naked eye. Like this wasn't like in my imagination, it wasn't in my mind's eye. And in that moment, I just knew that she was going on to this new amazing place, that she was at peace, that she was calm, that she wanted me to see that. And I knew that her like guardian angels and like all of her other deceased loved ones there with her to left the room because it was so powerful. And like I'm not a very like religious or spiritual person. And my cousins thought I left the room because they thought it like I couldn't handle how sad it was. And it was like, and I still didn't tell them because it was kind of like, you know, like is it the right time to tell them? Like would they think, do you think I'm making it up? I just didn't know like when the right time was to tell them. So I told them like years later. And when I did, like all my cousins, my mom, my aunt and uncle, they were all like, "Oh yeah, we're psychic. We all have these abilities." And I'm thinking like, "Okay, I've been dealing with this since I was like 10. No one talks about it." And then when I do bring it up, now everybody has these abilities. So I thought I had been alone for so long, but now they all had this ability. So I started to read a lot of books and I was like watching a lot of TV shows with psychic mediums, but nothing was like developing the ability. It was like, okay, I'm learning a lot of stuff, but like nothing's working to like control it, to develop it, to set boundaries with spirits. And I finally found a mentor, and I only worked with her for maybe like an hour a month for 6 months. And then my abilities just skyrocketed. And I was able to contact spirit on demand. I was able to give mediumship readings. So I look back at my journey and it's like, it is amazing that I can do mediumship readings, but I feel like if I can create other people to be healers or to be mediums or whatever they have in this special gift, like I feel like that's my mission right now is create as many light workers as I can. So yeah, I've created this mentorship program so that anyone can do this ability. It's just like any other skill, playing basketball or playing a piano, so anyone can do it. I just don't know why there's no mentors to teach people it. So like I want to be that person for other people now.
Oh wow! What I think is really interesting about what you said is how your whole family had different abilities, and you mentioned being clairaudient. So, one, can you explain what the clairs are, the different clairs, and are your family members clairaudient, or do they have some of the other clairs?
Sure. So the clair senses, is how I describe them, is basically your five physical senses, like on steroids. So it's whenever you're able to connect your intuition with those senses. And I think of it like, if you were to play a sport, the goal is to win at that sport. You don't need to be good at every sport and win at every sport. So if you're clairaudient, which means you have clear hearing from spirit, or if you're clairvoyant, which means you have clear seeing. It's not like one is better than the other. Like, figure out which one you have and then roll with it, you know? So you don't need to be good at all of them. But there's also clairsentient, meaning you feel, you have clear feeling of what the message is. So, I might start to do the mannerisms of that person that passed or start talking like them. There's also claircognizance, which means you just have that knowing, like how I knew without knowing how I knew that my grandma's spirit was there and it rose above the bed. A lot of people have that one as well. So yeah, it's basically your physical senses, but tied in with your sixth sense of your intuition. Oh, and then my family has all different things. So like I have one cousin that can speak with, he has telepathy and he can communicate with spirit animals. I have an uncle that's an angelic healer who can um connect with Archangel Saint Michael and heal people. So yeah, we all have different abilities, just like I think everyone just has like a different one. You just don't know what you have till you actually start getting into it, you know?
That was actually going to lead into my next question because I was going to say, don't everybody's at some level have some type of clair ability or some type of psychic ability?
Oh, absolutely. So we're all born with these gifts. It's our sixth sense, our intuition. It's just like anything else. Like if you have the desire or if it excites you or if you have a passion to develop it, you can absolutely develop it. So the difference between having these psychic experiences and becoming a psychic is that a psychic is someone who has developed it, who has control of it, who knows how to use that guidance in their life and to help other people with it, other than someone who just has these psychic experiences, but they think they're everyday human ones. So I actually have an ebook on my website, and it's exactly that. It goes through, you have to sign up for my newsletter list, but it goes through exactly what a psychic experiences is, and it gives a whole bunch of examples, because I think that's where you need to start. Like if you don't know what a psychic experience is or what to look out for, then you don't think you're having them. But guarantee if you take this quiz, you'll be like, oh yeah, I've definitely had at least one of them, if not many, many more than that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Oftentimes, when I talk to people about not just psychic abilities, but more so about spiritualism, and people say, "Well, I haven't experienced anything really spiritual." I'm like, "I'm sure you have. You
Yeah.
just didn't recognize it, and you probably wrote it off with your logical mind instead of thinking about it more, let's say, more creatively."
Yes.
But, yeah, we all have those experiences, and they can be really challenging to explain. But looking at your psychic abilities, do you only experience clairaudience, or can you like see auras, or in developing your clairaudience, the other abilities start to come around?
Yeah, I'm definitely. Well, I started with clairaudience, but now I do have the clairvoyance, which is like I can see images, symbols, visions in my mind's eye. When I do a mediumship reading, sometimes it's like a home video that I'm seeing or a photo album. I'm also claircognizant and clairsentient. So yeah, I feel like once you know how to start developing them, they do start to come on, and it's basically just how spirit wants to be able to communicate with you. And you have to, really trust yourself. You really have to trust in spirit, and you have to trust in those messages, because once your rational mind gets in the way, you're going to change the message. And now you're changing what spirit actually wants to give that message to someone. So, yeah, the rational mind is like this battle, right? Of our intuition versus the rational mind. And it's always going to get in the way of like, you're making this up, or there's no scientific evidence on this, or there's no way you knew that. So that's actually a big battle that I had and my clients have. It's always that like trusting of, getting the rational mind that's been in the driver's seat your whole life, and now you're like trying to get it into the passenger seat and it doesn't want to go. So
Mhm.
it's that battle between the two all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I've had the same experience when I first started to do some deep meditations, and I was like, okay, so what are these images that are coming up? Like what
Yeah.
does it mean? So, how long did it take you to really start to trust what you were seeing and feel that you could give out that information? Because I feel like when you first get started, okay, maybe you start to trust it a little bit, but should I really tell that person and do I talk about it?
Yeah, exactly. So like Oh, I did a practice circle, which I think is very important. And I actually offer that after my mentorship program so that, you just have people to practice on that know you're practicing. So the pressure's off. They're not paying for a reading. Really, we put the pressure on ourselves, right? But like, it's a non judgmental, very safe space and you can practice it. So I feel like without that practice circle, I wouldn't have been as confident. But like, I'd be doing a reading and someone would validate, like, oh my gosh, you're 100% on, like, that's spot on. And still, I'd be thinking, I don't know if this is real. And it's like, they're telling me, they have more belief in me than I do. Like, they're telling me, I 100% agree with this. This is spot on. And like, you still have that distrust. So I think I was in the practice circle for about 8 months. And I did that
Mm.
every week religiously for the whole 8 months until finally it was just like, this has to be real. And so it's just sad that it takes that long, or and everybody's different. It might not take someone that long, but I felt like, why can't I just trust it? But yeah, it was just, I came from, like, my mom's side had abilities, but my dad's side was very closed minded and skeptical. And so I think because I had both sides of that, that it was a little bit harder for me to trust it and believe in it.
Oh, I can 100% like resonate with that. Both sides of my family, I would say, are very spiritual, and I've always said that I'm blessed to have very open-minded parents. But I will say that some of my grandparents were very religious growing up, and nowadays it's really interesting because my grandmother watches every episode.
Aw, hi,
Shout out,
Grandma.
yeah, like, she's gonna watch it, and
Aw.
she finds them really interesting. And I was just like, of all people, I didn't think that this particular grandmother would be that interested in it. But I was curious about when you say you do readings, oftentimes people talk about readings, they think about tarot readings, and I don't feel like that's what you're talking about. So can you walk us through kind of what a reading is like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in case someone doesn't know what a medium is, I am someone who can connect with a deceased loved one. So, you would come to me for a reading to connect with that person who has passed. So, I always recommend to wait at least 6 months after they pass because two reasons. One, they're just getting used to the spirit world, and I don't want to interrupt that process. And
Mm.
two, if you're grieving so strongly, it's putting up a brick wall, and it's very hard to communicate through a brick wall. So if your grief is that like thick, it's very hard for me to be able to communicate. But when someone goes into a mediumship reading, I recommend that at least 24 hours before they invite the spirit in that they want to talk to, start thinking of their memories, give them permission to join the reading. And then when we're at the reading, I do a little spiritual exercise, and it's basically a small meditation to clear their mind, to get them, calm, because a lot of, they might be nervous or a lot of anxiety or fear might be coming up. So I try to get them calm as well. And then the reading goes pretty smoothly in terms of they can ask questions. I try to get answers for them, but it's just really full of healing and comfort and love when the messages come through. So it's more just, anything that maybe had been left on the table that you need closure for, or you just want to talk to that person. So yeah, it's really about connecting with your deceased loved one because they're still in our lives just in a different way. And so I know a lot of people might have a hard time believing that, but if you're like me and you have dead people talking to you all day, trust me, it is real. There's no one that can tell me it is not real.
Oh, wow.
They communicate with me all day long.
That's really interesting. Sorry, is it strange having, I guess, someone in your ear communicating with you all day, or are you able to cut that on, cut that off?
Yes, thank goodness I'm able, because I've developed it. I set boundaries with them. So just as though you would have like a physical storefront store and you have your open and close hours, I have to do that same thing. So every morning I tell spirits, because you never know if a new spirit might come in and might not have heard the hours, right? So I have to tell them every day, these are my open hours and these are my closed hours, or else, they would communicate with me all day. So yeah, and then I wouldn't be able to like really be in the human world, or like have a job or cook or clean, because I'd just constantly be communicating. So if you see them as my clients, like, I can't be working 24/7. So yeah, they definitely need to respect the boundaries.
Like, that leads me into my next question because you mentioned maybe there's a new spirit that shows up that doesn't really know your energy space. So, have you ever been in a situation where you were giving your reading to somebody and that person just didn't show up, or maybe somebody else or another entity pushed through to speak?
Yeah, we can never guarantee who's going to come in. We can try our hardest, but you never know who's going to come through. And if you really want to connect with someone, I recommend that you do a mediumship reading by yourself, because if you bring someone else, now you're opening up all those people, like whoever that person who has deceased loved ones, they could come in as well. So because we can't really control that, if you want your person to come through, you should really do it by yourself. Um, I don't think there were many times where I wasn't able to get the person that they wanted to. But there are definitely times where they only want to talk to one person, and then like all these other people start coming in that that person knows as well. So, but they usually invite that in. It's not like it's an issue, but yeah, so far I've been pretty lucky, knock on wood, that I can get the person that they're trying to get.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we're going to take a really quick commercial break. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. So, before we left, we were talking about different spirits being able to come in when you're doing your mentorship reading. I'm sorry, your mediumship reading. So, my next question is I'm just curious, what's been the most interesting or maybe strange thing that's happened when you were doing your reading?
Ooh, okay. So let me think about that one. There's so many. What's interesting is that after I do a mediumship reading, so I basically have to turn my consciousness off so that the deceased loved one can come in to my consciousness. And so a lot of times I don't remember the readings. So I always tell my clients that, like, hey, you might see me next week and be like, hey, remember when you said that? Like, no, I don't, because it's not actually me saying it. I'm actually turning my consciousness off, and that spirit's coming through me as a channel. So a lot of readings I don't remember, but I'm trying to think if I had. There was this one old man, okay, who was coming in as like very grumpy and rude. And so I was giving the messages, and I felt kind of bad because it was like, oh my gosh, why is this guy? His loved ones are here and he's being like very grumpy, right? And he's being very rude. And after a few minutes, like the client just started like cracking up. Well, here, the man was very sarcastic, but the sarcasm for me wasn't coming through. So I thought he was grumpy and rude, and they were explaining like, no, this is like his personality. He always used to like joke with us and be very sarcastic. So even though I was taking the reading one way, they were like, no, like this is him completely, and they were laughing and having a good time where I thought it was like very rude. So yeah, that was an interesting one.
Oh, wow. I feel like that's just such great validation when it's like, I don't know what's going on, but you guys think it's hilarious, but it
Yes.
resonates with them so well. It's interesting what you say about really not remembering the conversation that you have. Like a lot of channelers, they say when they're channeling a different being or different entity or spirit that they do cut their consciousness is that a word? Consciousness off, and they don't actually remember what's going on. But what does that feel like for you, like from a physical perspective, when you cut off your consciousness?
So it's actually an amazing place to be in. So if people meditate and you can get into that deep meditative state where you just don't have any thoughts and you're so relaxed and calm and you're really being in the moment,
Mhm.
that's the closest thing that I can relate it to. It's when my mind is just like completely off. I have no thoughts, and then their thoughts just come in. So, and then it's just free flowing from there, because now I'm basically just channeling that energy and the messages can come through very easily. So you really, it's very important to get into that meditative state. But yeah, that's basically how I would like how I would say that it's like. And yeah, it's a great place to be in because we think all day. So to be able to have your thoughts cut off is great.
Do you ever feel like a wave of energy flowing through you, or do you feel like you're vibrating?
Yeah, so how I can describe it is like I get like tingling or chills like from literally my head all the way down to my feet. And when
Mhm.
that happens, I know that the message is spot on. So that's spirit's way of letting me know that like I am saying exactly what they want me to say. And I'll let the client know that. Like, there's no way this part of the message is incorrect. I'm getting those chills up and down my body because I never claim to be 100% accurate. I don't think that anyone can say they're 100% accurate. No one's perfect. So that's like my way of letting them know. But like, I might not be perfect this whole time, but this part is.
So do you get tired? Like, how many readings do you do a day? Is it exhausting for you energetically?
Yeah, so I only do one reading a day, because I do them in the evening, whenever my mind's like, not like busy with work and things. I used to do a lot more than that, and now I'm more focused on the mentorship program, because that like doesn't expend a lot of my energy. But it's different, I think, with different energies that come through. Like if someone's very strong that comes through, I mean, like I need to like take a shower afterward. I need to like restore my energy, hydrate, do a lot. And then other times, if an energy is not as strong, I just kind of go about my day. So I think everyone is a little bit different depending on how strong the energy that came in was.
That's interesting because that actually leads to my next question was what about spiritual and energetic cleansing and the importance of doing that?
Yeah, so for me, I think the big thing is preventing that. So before I do a mediumship reading, I make sure that I sage the room that I'm in, I sage myself, and then after the reading, I make sure that I cleanse myself of the energy. And basically what I do is I picture that I'm going through a car wash. So it's like, I'm getting scrubbed down and then I'm going through the water and then I'm drying off. So that's a very easy, quick way for me to cleanse that energy off of me.
Why sage? Can you talk about sage or why not maybe like Palo Santos or some incense or something?
Yeah, it can be any of them. I think that's just like my preference. You can also use selenite, which is a crystal. So yeah, there's different ones that you can use. So yeah, whichever. And there's actually sage spray as well that you can just like spray like a perfume and walk through it. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't think it matters which one. Just kind of like find which one you like the best and use that.
I've definitely never seen sage spray. That's new.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you can buy that on Amazon, right? And Amazon has everything.
For sure, for sure. I was just curious, like, okay, that's a new one for me, sage spray. I've heard of Florida water and people will use that and it's like a I'm not gonna lie, like I know exactly what it is. But it's definitely another one of those cleansing things that people do, but they typically use it for crystals and things of that nature.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We only have just a few more minutes left. Is there something else that you really want to leave with the audience before we get a chance to go?
I think what I'd like to leave with the audience is if you're someone who is having psychic experiences and you maybe just don't have that like minded community, I would love to be that for you. You can go to my website, brandyvan.com, set up a call with me, even if it's just to discuss what's been going on so that you have someone that can, be like, hey, I know exactly what you're going through. I can maybe give you some advice or feedback on it. I can answer any questions that you might have because I know that when you are going through this, if you don't have that community, it's a very hard place to be in. So if I can offer that to anyone, I could talk about this stuff all day long. There's nothing they can tell me that I probably haven't heard before. So I would love to be that safe space for them.
Awesome, awesome. That's wonderful. And I actually did have one more question
Sure.
before we get out of here. So you have a lot of individuals whom first might have these experiences, maybe in like a dreamlike state. How do you differentiate having a dream encounter and whether or not that's purely a dream or if there are messages in that dream? Or do all dreams have messages?
Sure. Yeah, so all of our dreams do have messages. That's a big part of the program that I do, is interpreting your dreams because it's really like goes into our psyche and it tries to give us advice for our waking life. But that's a whole process of like making sure you remember the dream, then interpreting it, then putting it into your everyday life. But as for like a spirit coming in, there's a direct way to know if it's a visit from them or if it's just a dream. If
Mhm.
it's just a dream, you'll remember it in the morning. Maybe you'll remember it throughout the week, but you kind of start to forget the details and then eventually you completely forget it. If it's a visit, it's as though you've created a new memory with this person. You remember every detail. It could be 5 years from now, and you can tell someone like it just happened last night. And that's how you know that your spirit, that person visited you versus you just dreamt of them.
For sure. And it's funny because, like, because that's one of the things that happens to me. And I know I can tell the difference usually because, exactly like you said, the detail is beyond vivid. It's like the same reality. And even the way that I wake up is slightly different than waking up from a dream. it feels like my consciousness is being almost poured back into my body and I'm slowly rising up. It's really weird and interesting experience.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but I want to thank you so much for coming onto the show today. I love this conversation. I love talking about this
Okay.
stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.